Hi everyone, and welcome into Pushing the Limits. I am super excited. This week I have Dr. Chris Meletis with me, and he is known as the Natural Med Man, and we're going to be talking about a product that I'm very excited about. It's called Myos MD. And but first, let's introduce Dr. Chris. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chris. Fabulous to have you on here. We've already talked each other's ears off. So can you give the audience just a bit of a rundown on your incredible background?
Well, certainly, and thanks for having me. And looks like we'll push the limits together,
Yes.
so we can expand everybody's opportunity to be well. So I've been a physician for 33 years. And I was the dean at the Naturopathic University, the oldest naturopathic university here in North America. And I've been fortunate to write 19 books. The most recent one was actually on how to have a healthy outcomes. Fertility in North America has really dramatically dropped. But the outcomes has even became worse. We're 1 in 38 for autism. So we're writing about, it's not just about being fertile, but having fertile ground in which to plant the generations. And so I love writing. I love lecturing. I do lots of interviews, a lot of webinars, education for healthcare providers. And I've just been privileged to embrace the science of natural medicine, but not be blinded by the science, because all of our ancestral backgrounds, I'm half German, half Greek. The Greek doesn't show in my complexion. The German does, very, very pale. But I enjoy Greek food more than German food. Too much information for the audience. But both my dad would always go back to Greece and say, hey, this is what we've used in the village for centuries. And there's just some natural wisdom to using foods and herbs and things that have sustained humanity for the millennia.
And isn't it exciting that science is actually now catching up with some of the ancestral wisdoms that these amazing ancestors of ours and in our culture as well knew to be healing, and now we're actually validating it with our modern science. I find that really cool. It's sort of doubling down.
It's cool, but we already knew it worked. And now
exactly.
we can officially approve from the outside powers to be. It works, but hey, we already knew it worked.
Exactly. And the power lies within that. Now, we're going to be sharing today about a specific product that I was super excited about, that a friend and mentor, Dr. Elizabeth Youth from the Boulder Longevity Institute, actually made me aware of. And it's called Myos MD, MYOS MD. And you are an expert on this product. Can you give us a bit of a rundown? I was excited about this because it's something that helps with anabolic resistance, with keeping, in other words, your muscle mass as you get older, which is for me with my mum. Everybody knows my story. I talk ad nauseum about mum, and of course she's struggling with sarcopenia, osteoporosis, as on the follow-on from many ailments that she's had. And so I'm always looking out for things that can help with keeping her muscles going and her bones going. So that's how I came across Myos MD for starters. But can you tell us what is Myos MD and what is Fortetropin and why am I excited about it?
Well, certainly. Well, the way I got excited about it, and probably the same reason you got excited about it, is it's a fertilized egg extract with patents on it, showing its ability to lower myostatin. Myostatin is one of our enemies as we get older. Now, if you're sedentary, you're stressed, you're injured, all of these things, the myostatin levels rise. Just getting older, our myostatins rise, unless you're in really, really great shape. And being a sedentary fellow for the last 30-some years, working and grinding and writing and doing all this, I've also experienced the fact that, hey, well, what happened to those muscles? I think it's supposed to be bulging upwards, not downwards, right? And so it's a raw fertilized egg, never been heated. And it actually has been shown to lower myostatin, which is great. Myostatin, if we were to block all of our myostatin levels, we'd all be a world famous bodybuilders. I mean, we'd just be muscle ridden, and or marathoners, ultra marathoners. We'd be extremely fit. And so we always are looking at the yin yang, the catabolic side of things. Catabolic tears our body down. Anabolic, of course, we think anabolic steroids, but our body's always looking to rebuild. So taking the word anabolic steroid, anabolic, we're trying to, of course, always build back the body well. And so this is not a steroid. This is nothing like that, but it's supporting the natural ability to help with the healthier aging process. And as you pointed out, the beautiful word, anabolic resistance. And so once again, not about a steroid, but as we get older, our ability to use our amino acids to build strong muscle and to heal, or an injury. I remember my hernia surgery, and am I any better after my repair? No, because the same weakness was there. So it's about leaving your body better and stronger and lowering those myostatin levels. And the research, the human studies, the animal studies on MyosMD is remarkable. And when I started diving into the literature, I'm going like, wow, it's like the proof is in the pudding. Plus, all it is a highly researched, special processed, fertilized raw egg. So food is our medicine.
It's food is our medicine. Who was that? Hippocrates or somebody who said
Yes,
food is our medicine?
400 BCE.
Hey, amen. And so this isn't a drug. This is great. And it's something that's simple and easy to incorporate into our diet and lifestyle. And it's going to, so, you know, like with someone like mum who's just broken a hip, you know, 7 months ago, and she's 83 and already had mobility problems, etc. Her ability, and most people in that position, you know, over 50% die in a year, within a year after a hip break, right? It's serious stuff when you have
So
a
sad. And
unnecessary, exactly. And so from the very get-go, I was mobilizing her as fast as I possibly could, pushing her quite hard to keep that, because I understand how quickly the body deteriorates. Like within days, at that age, with her history, you are going backwards very fast. But all humans, like if we're in a car accident and you're in ICU, within 2 weeks you've lost a massive amount of muscle mass, because just our daily active living, you know, walking around the house and doing our jobs, we're actually using so many muscles that we're just not aware of how important that movement actually is, because we're just doing it. But when you're actually laid up, immobilized because of a surgery, because of a broken something, then you're very quickly going to deteriorate. Even an 18-year-old is going to deteriorate really quickly. So this is not just for older people. This is for people who are going through surgeries or been in accidents or things like that. Or,
exactly.
Or indeed athletes. Athletes
yes.
who are wanting to build muscle, wanting to maintain muscle, wanting to keep their strength up. This is something that's very powerful. Can you explain to us, like, myostatin, myo meaning stop, muscle, sorry, myo meaning muscle and statin meaning stop. So myostatin together is basically the body makes more myostatins, which inhibits our ability to make muscle. Why would the body make myostatin in the first place? Wouldn't that be detrimental? What would happen if we didn't have myostatin?
Well, if we didn't have myostatin, we would be muscle bound. We literally would be
huge, like the Belgian bulls.
Couldn't button our shirts.
Yeah.
And couldn't get the shirt over our head. And it's always about balance. Too much of anything, too much water, too much sun, too much fish oil, whatever it might be, you can get too much of something. And so when you have too much myostatin, this is once again where we get into the weakness. So we want to lower it, but as part of it's our epigenetics, our diet and our lifestyle. And of course, you're an expert in this field of epigenetics. It's like, if we stayed fit, if we stayed lean, if we ate a traditional diet culturally, the myostatin levels are much more likely to be contained. But as you point out, what about an injury? But they did a study of trained resistance athletes, and they gave them, so they're very fit, they're young, they were college age, and they gave them the MyosMD, and either 6.6 grams or 19.8 grams, and they all experienced more protein synthesis.
Mm-hmm.
And the research shows, whether we're young or old, morbidity and mortality. Morbidity, of course, susceptibility to an illness. Welcome to diabetes, welcome to injuries. And as we get older, so we have these resistance trained ones, 6.6 or 19.8 grams, both will experience more muscle. More muscles, that's more stability, more thermogenesis, better hormonal well-being, stronger homeostasis. And we're all fighting entropy. Entropy, of course, is a physics word, means chaos. I mean, we're all
breaking
likely
down.
to go to, yeah, exactly. And so we're trying to build back upon the rock and not the sand. And the foods of our traditional ancestors were healthier. They were innately organic. We didn't have all the pollution. We didn't have the helter-skelter news feeds. We didn't have all the stress. Now, our ancestors had a lot of stress. They had to find their food. They had to do this. There's the things that they had to deal with, which we don't. We have privilege there. But the reality is we are fighting all of this chaos. We're having to support homeostasis. Homeostasis is a healthy state of being, but our allostatic load, which is all the epigenetic things coming, we get an injury. And they did a study on dogs, and the dogs had to basically have the equivalent of a knee replacement. And they, of course, are immobilized. So we call it disuse syndrome. As we chatted a little bit before the call, your mom has had disuse syndrome because of the hip and other things. And so now we're having to regain that momentum. So we're dealing with age, generally age, higher than myostatin. But young people that get injured, then what you need to do? You need to be building your body back. But now you're injured. And in the animal dog study that they found that the individual dogs that were not taking the myostatin actually had an increase in the myostatin, whereas MyosMD actually lowered it. It kept it at a stable level. So the dogs actually started withering away that were not taking the Fortetropin, whereas the dogs that didn't were like, hey, I still got a good limb when I'm out of my cast.
Exactly. They bounce back a lot quicker. So this is a way to repair much quicker and not lose muscle mass. And muscle is the currency of longevity, is something I keep saying over and over on this podcast. And, you know, as a woman, traditionally women have been told you got to be skinny, 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 you know, and it's like, and that's what I believed as a young woman, you know, you had to be very, very thin. And I was very muscular and I didn't like it. And now I'm like, thank God I was muscular, and I'm trying to get more muscle. And I'm 56 now, and I'm like at the gym, hitting it, making muscle as much as I can, because I understand that, cardio is important, right? It's not that it's not important, but after the age of 40, because of this myostatin situation and our hormones dropping off and growth hormone dropping off and testosterone dropping off and all these other things, then we're going to lose our muscle mass. And that leads to frailty, that leads to sarcopenia, that can lead to osteoporosis and all of these diseases of aging. We can counteract that with resistance training, which definitely I do. But having MyosMD, so someone like mum who cannot, and there's a lot of people in this position who are older, who haven't exercised for long times, who can't exercise to the degree that they would need to in order to build, like I can, then this is a helping hand, right? Like if you're still lying in the bed with your leg in a cast, you're taking MyosMD, you're not going to deteriorate, you're not going to lose that muscle mass nearly as quickly, correct?
That's what the research is showing in the animal studies. And this is what we're seeing also in the human clinical practice. It's like we start adding this. In fact, I added it for my wife of the last 34 years. And what she did was she had metabolic syndrome. She lost a lot of weight. She lost, and she became this skinny fat, if the term is great. Now the scale is happy, but you're not happy. You're like, okay, everything, you're swimming in your own skin.
Yeah.
And so as a result, we're actually incorporating, and for her, she's a vegetarian and vegan. And so luckily she will consume eggs, but not in real life, but in the process of MyosMD, she figured out how she can do it, but she doesn't like the taste of eggs. She actually likes this. She said, actually, this isn't bad. But otherwise, she normally is revolts. Now, if a person has an egg sensitivity or an egg allergy, of course, you cannot take MyosMD because it's egg-based product. But otherwise, it just does wonders. And I have a gentleman that 6'3", U.S. measurements, empirical measurements, and he was 240 pounds. He went on Ozempic, which is all the rage here in North America.
Yeah, GLP-1s.
And so, and he lost 17 pounds, but he noticed his knee, which he had surgery on, started acting up again because he had lost muscle mass, so the stability wasn't there. And then he noticed going to the gym, the weights were heavier, but he says, I thought being 17 pounds lighter, I'd be just vim and vigor. I'd be bouncing around. No, because he was losing a disproportional amount of muscle. And that's one of the big problems. Whenever we lose a large amount of weight quickly, not only are we detoxifying and releasing lots of toxins, which is scary in and of itself because of the toxic world in which we live. Then we're also losing our muscle. And you're very familiar because your line of work is myokines and exokines. Myokines and exokines have been documented coming from our muscle, and that our muscles are hormone producing
Endocrine,
substances.
endocrine
Yeah,
organs.
endocrine. So if I keep my forearm strong, it's going to actually bless the entirety of my body.
Yeah.
Because it actually creates a balance. So once again, morbidity, mortality, and muscle, all things being equal, is a great way to stay younger biologically. We do not have to accept a chronological age.
No, definitely not. We reverse.
You definitely do not look your vintage that you claim. And that's because
Thanks, Chris.
muscle keeps you young, and it keeps
Yeah.
you healthy, and it keeps you moving. A body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest or injury is very likely to stay there unless they have, like in your case, a daughter helping a mom, or with your podcast, helping people realize, hey, take Myos MD, do your resistance training, eat the good diet, stay culturally relevant to what sustained you ancestrally over the millennia. There's wisdom here.
Yeah, I love all that. And myokines are positive chemicals. So this is something that I've also employed with Mum's rehabilitation. Even when she was in the hospital with the broken hip and she can't move anything, I would take in little 1 kilo weights in the bed and make her just do arm movements because her arms aren't broken, right? And she's using those muscles. Okay, she can't move the leg muscles and the trunk muscles as well. Although I still made her do core exercises as well in the bed. Because what am I doing? I'm creating myokine signaling in the body. I'm creating these positive chemicals that those muscles are working, and that's helping the rest of her body maintain as best as we can in the situation, So you've got to put the Myos MD as part of, it's a modular approach, as you've said. This is something you can slot into any protocol. So you still want to be having good protein. You still want your amino acids. You still want your exercise. You still want all of those pieces. But this is something that you can add in to sort of negate the aging and this, disuse syndrome, as you called it. And this is another thing I heard in one of your lectures was euthyroid 6 syndrome that happens. Yes. Can you explain that? Because that was I hadn't actually ever connected those dots. I mean, I know a lot about thyroid, but that people that are in hospital, immobilized for some reason, they can get this euthyroid 6 syndrome. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So from an ancestral perspective, so as I shared right before our starting of the podcast, I'm half Greek, half German. I represent the German more with my pale complexion. And whereas my dad would go back to Greece and come back all olive. And I'm like, ooh, I wish I had that complexion. And so the reality is 75% of people that end up with a severe illness and either hospitalized or at home, and they could have been hospitalized, but you did it at home safely and with, of course, medical care, that your thyroid shuts down. But ancestrally, this makes sense because let's say, like my dad during World War II, he was in a cave eating bugs, but there was very little food because the Germans were going through Greece. And he was having to live on a very subsistence diet. And so the thyroid slowing down, which is our metabolism, it's okay, well, there's a time and place. Or if I injure myself and I have to have enough energy, I kind of go into quasi-hibernation mode. But the problem is that the thyroid gland, when it starts slowing down and shutting down with an illness, euthyroid 6 syndrome, it's not a thyroid problem, it's a full body aspect of I'm shutting down. I'm trying to save enough energy to hopefully win the battle and wake up on the other side of the battle. But the problem is every single cell in our body, minus a red blood cell, actually has a thyroid receptor. And so the muscles, well, they're not going to get the stimulation, the human metronome to work. And so all of a sudden the tick-tock. So everything's slowing down. Digestion,
so your gas pedal is off.
Exactly. The gas pedal it's like you're riding the brake. You're got the e-brake on, and you have your left foot on the brake, and you're like, but this is not what you want, and this is not what you need. And so we find that outcomes really do change based on muscle, thyroid health, and address now foundational thing. And once again, thyroid, it's a hormone. It means it's produced here, but has effect throughout the whole body. That's the nature of endocrine. Your adrenal glands produce cortisol, cortisone, of course, adrenaline. We're all familiar with anxiety. And so it's like, okay, well, all these hormones are working. But like you sneaking in the little weights for your mom,
Yeah.
beautiful, very loving. You could have brought her a piece of cake or weights. Good for you.
Yeah, don't. And everyone calls me the fun police, and oh no, Lisa's just so nasty to her mum. She won't let her eat cake, and she makes her work out every day.
Yes. Well, love from the heart and the mind. And so what's beautiful is you're also improving circulation. We have some 60,000 miles of blood vessels below our neck. We have
Wow.
100,000 miles of blood vessels in our brain alone.
Really? Wow.
100,000 miles. And like when we're sitting here, 20% of my oxygen and 20% of my glucose is going to 2% of my body weight, my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, wow. But once again, the myokines affect mood. The myokines affect all this. And if you have the can-do attitude, I always give the example, and this is silly, it seems very non-scientific, but I share this with my patients. Winnie the Pooh, if you're familiar with the story, Winnie the Pooh, there was Eeyore and there's Tigger.
Yeah.
And so if we're happy with our dopamine, we're happy with our homeostasis, we're Winnie the Pooh. We might be a plump little bear, but we got our honey and we're content. But now we're Eeyore, looks like hurricane weather. It looks, very miserable. Everything's foreboding. I don't really want to do that. Well, once again, that's part of when you have better myokines, better muscle health, you're actually healthier. And we used to think way back in the day when I graduated in 1992, interleukin-6, a substance, a cytokine, was a bad thing. Now we're saying just the right amount. So we learned from the cartoons, just like, do we want to be Pooh, Tigger, or Eeyore? Now, if we're Tigger, it's not sustainable. That's the rabbit in the race. And so it's more about steady as we go. But then we look at Goldilocks. It needs to be just right. And so like with the myostatin, you ask the question, well, why would our body even make myostatin? Well, as we get older and so forth, our body does have it. Part of that's because we're not doing the epigenetic things to keep it under control. And modern life really makes it pretty hard to do that, unless you have a daughter bringing weights into the hospital. And I think you said your mom is on the bike for an hour now as we're doing our podcast.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, because
love,
she has exercise.
And she's a good patient. She is a good patient.
That's key. She's got the attitude, right? Because you have to have that. I could not have rehabilitated from any of the cancers, the aneurysms, the hip breaks, the gastroenterology stuff that she's been doing. None of it if she hadn't had the attitude of she's a stubborn Irish, she just gets on with it, just do what you got to do.
She has a can-do attitude. She says, heck no, I won't go. It's much like the frog around the neck of the crane and is half engulfed. He's like, no, we're not going here. We're not giving up easy.
I'm not dead.
And it was actually the Dalai Lama that said what's supposed to surprise him most about humanity. And he says mankind, because they'll trade all of their health to gain wealth, then retrade all their wealth to try to regain their health, and the whole time being a hot mess, anxious and a hot mess. Wow. And so the mindfulness, taking time out, grounding yourself. I actually tell a movie producer of mine, I run a concierge practice. And I says, I want you to go to the beach and I want you to walk barefoot. So what does he do? He brings his camera because he's a movie producer and he's filming himself, documenting that I said, no camera, no nothing. You just do it and just be.
Be
and it's like,
nature.
But he was like, no, see, look, I'm doing it. I was like, no, just be. And so this is why we're supposed to, all our ancestors, we walked around barefoot. We walked around every place. We didn't have the automobiles. Of course, and therefore we didn't have the petroleum and the gases and all this, and the off-gassing of the new car smell, that whole nother epigenetic risk factor. But, so back to the myos part of things and the myos MD, it makes good sense to protect our muscle. We have to protect it. Myostatin levels are rising unless we're doing everything perfectly. And so we need to augment and support controlled myostatin. We need to fight anabolic resistance, which is the use of our amino acids. And so as we get older, our stomach acid may not be as good as it used to be. They say by the age of 60, that half the population has achlorhydria or hyperchlorhydria. So not only do we have the myostatin issue, we have anabolic resistance. And the anabolic resistance is also a saboteur. It's like someone threw a whole lot of nails in front of us, and all we want to do is keep on moving forward and enjoy one day retirement. But all of a sudden, there's the myostatin, there's anabolic resistance. As you pointed out, with whether it be andropause, male menopause, or menopause, when I first found out I had andropause, I looked at my levels and I says, a 10-year-old boy has more testosterone than I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And for menopause, if you're not doing bioidentical hormones or hormone replacement therapy, we're all working at 10-year-old little boy, little girl levels with the responsibilities of adults.
Yeah.
And so once again, our growth hormone, our testosterone, and I love the fact that you mentioned that. We often forget women need those anabolic hormones, the
Amen.
DHEA
And the
and the
testosterone.
testosterone.
Yes.
And certainly I might, when I had testosterone au natural, be 5 or 10 times higher than you, but it was all about just the right amount, the
The
Goldilocks zone.
ratio. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the bed too hard? Is the soup too warm or cool? It's all about our unique Goldilocks zone.
And that's different for men and women, but we have the same hormones, and our adrenal function is basically the same. It's just that our sex organs produce different amounts. You have more testosterone as a male, I have more estrogen as a female. But as we get to menopause, like I was checking my husband's levels of estrogen, and they were higher than mine because mine had dropped off a cliff, and I was on bioidentical hormones, but it wasn't cutting the mustard. So that's the other thing. When you're on bioidentical, you've got to monitor, because you, especially in the perimenopause, and I'm still going through perimenopause, menopausal time, even at 56, which is cool in of itself, because it means that I've slowed aging, because I'm still not ovulating, but I'm cycling.
You're still jump roping is what I call it. You're still jump roping.
Yes, I'm still like doing the thing, and that means that you're staying younger longer. So women who go into menopause early or have hysterectomies tend to age at a quicker rate because their hormones drop off a cliff. And estrogen typically in our 40s goes up and down. It's sort of a bit of a seesaw. And progesterone is, I've just done a podcast on progesterone and the wonders of progesterone with Carol Peterson, who's an expert on progesterone. And like a lot of our ladies are dropping off the progesterone cliff much earlier than they used to, for whatever reason, whether there's estrogens in our environment, xenoestrogens, and glyphosates, or whatever the cause.
Well, and the stress. See, the thing is,
the stress. Yep.
Yeah, because progesterone is made into cortisol, and cortisone are catabolic breakdown device.
Yes.
So we have that yin and yang of estrogen and progesterone. And I'm glad you also, so progesterone's a must. It's also great for sleep, and welcome to menopause and sleep disruption.
Yeah.
But I know Carol well. She's brilliant.
She's brilliant.
And I think it's so vitally important to remember that. And you captured a tagline. Guys, as I've gotten older, I'm almost 60 now, but I can have more estrogen than my wife.
Yeah.
Because my testosterone converts to estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, we have receptor issues as well. So we're talking about muscle today. And of course, we think DHEA, we think testosterone is, of course, good anabolic, natural anabolic processes, but still the anabolic resistance, the GI absorption. So Fortetropin addresses those. Doing the resistance training has been shown to improve testosterone for men and women, and or high intensity intermittent training, making sure we've got our fish oil, making sure our vitamin D levels are good. So vitamin D is so critical. And we forget vitamin D is not only a vitamin, it's a hormone. It's made from cholesterol, just like our cortisol or cortisone, our testosterone. Is like, wow. So once again, back to nature, communing. Don't be afraid of the sun. Just don't get burnt. And I've heard from my mom before she passed away, don't stare at the sun. So I think that's good advice. Moms are usually right.
But all of these pieces of the puzzle, go into this whole. But coming back to the myosin D, which has got Fortetropin in it, so that is the word Fortetropin that you use as the active ingredient, or whatever you want to call it. And so it affects, like we've talked a little bit about the thyroid, and so one question that I had in my head about it is, if you have cancer, can you take myosin D? Is it, with cancer, well, at least I've been a proponent more of the metabolic approach to cancer, where we're cutting out the carbs mostly, and we're doing a good healthy diet, but we're doing mostly, a low carb diet, a keto sort of based diet mostly, and fasting and so on and so forth. Can we put myosin D? Because this is a key thing. Like people with cancer, cachexia, weight loss is a major thing. Do you know of any research? Is there any research around it in regards to active metastatic cancer or having cancer in the past? Is it okay to take myosin D, or would you steer clear of it?
So there's several layers to that question. You mentioned cancer, then you mentioned metastatic cancer. First off, there's no research on MyosMD and cancer.
No specific.
There is a concern about mTOR in some kinds of cancers.
Yeah.
And so cachexia, that wasting away is very common with cancer. And it would seem natural that Fortetropin would be a good consideration. However, the stance is at this juncture, there's not enough information to make that recommendation. And we usually generally say, stay away from it. And I happen to have a younger sister with metastatic breast cancer. And I knew a lot about cancer to start with. And we know that our regulatory boards, FDA, I'm sure you folks have similar, only oncologists could do oncological work and so forth and so on. So I'm going to steer clear of that. And I would say, if it was me, I'd be careful of Fortetropin with cancer because we don't know. We don't know. And one day we might find out it's the cat's meow. But right now, always caution's a better part of valor. But so if I was to all of a sudden be diagnosed with having an aggressive cancer, I would probably discontinue my myos, but not because it caused it, but just because I don't know. Also, you're probably very familiar with the Hoffman effect. That's where they've now tackled methionine as potentially as important as glucose to feeding cancer. So now going on a lower methionine diet. So unfortunately, my sister has thrown me deep into the weeds of knowing stuff that, as with your mom, you've now become more of an expert in certain areas than you thought you ever would be out of necessity. And I think it was Thomas Edison that said, necessity is the mother of all invention. And so it's about being the difference. But I would say all the things that we've talked about, great. I would say I would steer clear of the cancer only because we don't know.
Because we don't know, and we haven't got the research. That's
right.
Always a good, And mTOR, so everything that's healthy for a normal person is generally in a cancer case, and especially an active metastatic cancer, because it's usually metastatic where you really run into the problems. If you've got a primary cancer, we've got good chances. When it's metastatic, we've got more issues. But we're trying to stop mTOR in that case. We don't want to do that for the average normal person, and it's sort of counterintuitive, isn't it, that you're trying to stop these things. But hopefully we will get some research in the future, because there are other things that have been on the fence with cancer. And of course, I've researched a lot of them, and now they've been shown to be safe. So I'm hoping, at some point there might be some cancer research and it will be safe, because to be able to fight that cachexia, to be able to maintain muscle mass. When you're maintaining muscle mass, you're burning more glucose, right? So you're starving the cancer, and that from that fuel. When you've got more muscle, the less muscle you have, the less glucose you're going to use, the more insulin resistance that you may also become, the more likely the cancer has more glucose to feed itself as well.
And this is one reason I tell all my patients that end up with a disease like cancer, stay moving, stay in action, because the healthy muscles, once again, the myokines, the exerkines, which is another kind of myokine, it keeps your immune system competent. And if you just sit around waiting for the moment, whatever that moment might be, no, stay active, stay going, stay moving, stay positive. And I generally tell my patients, don't listen to the number the doctor has given you.
Never.
Yeah, here in Oregon, my sister in February of 2023 was offered hospice. She's younger than me. She has 2 young kids, and she's a single mom. And so she says no, because she's a mom. So the mom part of her fight came in.
Good on her. Good on her.
And so she left Oregon, went to Texas to MD Anderson, and said, oh yeah, we'll treat that. We're just going to categorize it as regional metastatic opposed to systemic, and therefore the insurance company, how did they determine life? But they had told my sister go on to hospice, which is end care.
End of life care,
yeah, correct. And 2 years later, she's still going strong. She's still walking several miles a day, and she knows, yes, because once again, a body in motion. But our body was designed to be moving. Unfortunately, because of our lifestyles, most of us become a little bit more sedentary, except for you.
I'm trying not to.
and probably many of your listeners, and your mom. Your mom's not pretty sedentary either. And so it's just beautiful. And so what you're doing is pushing the limits, but lot of those limits are common sense as well. So you're bringing the science in with the experts, but it's also common sense. Food is our best medicine. And just like Hippocrates, we quoted him as food is our best medicine. He's also the one that said all disease begins in the gut. Now we know the research shows the microbiome is critical. And so addressing the microbiome, and there's more of them being the microbiome,
than us,
than
than human DNA.
Yeah, and that's just in our GI tract. One of my 18th book was called the MMM, the microbial mucosal milieu, skin microbiome, eye microbiome, oral microbiome, nasopharyngeal, but even blood and brain microbiome, uterine and prostate microbiome. So when we take an antibiotic or drink chlorinated water, all of this is disrupting them. And when we eat, we feed our little pack men and women, our little microbiota. And so that book's actually free on Amazon for Kindle Unlimited, called Excellent. The MMM Theory. And I'm not promoting the book. It's a free book, but it's like, hey, you've got to take that common sense. And, we've overly sanitized ourselves. We've too much hand sanitizer, too much of this and that.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
we need our bugs.
Yes. And so it's just part of that. So I think back to the Myos MD, Myos MD is designed to augment, and you said it beautifully. It's a modular. Whatever your protocol that's working for you is, you just add it to your working protocol. And as a result, you're going to augment the muscle health, help with the anabolic resistance, lower the myostatin, and to see that in a 21-day study of older adults, double-blind, placebo-controlled, they actually found that they didn't change their diet, they didn't change their exercise, but it had an 18% increase in protein synthesis. Oh my gosh.
That's huge. That's huge.
And that's me sitting here in front of my desk doing all my deadlines and taking my Myos.
And getting more muscle for it, just sitting on your pump. Wow.
Yeah, I'll be a better clicker on my mouse now.
I see I'll have to come over and get you out the door and you teach me.
Yeah, you put me on my bicycle. I have a stationary bicycle. I just need Lisa to say, get on your bicycle, Chris.
Yeah. You need a sergeant major on your side.
And get some weights in your hands.
Just interrupting your show to let you know about our Health Span Hacks course, How Not to Die. This is a comprehensive course created and produced by myself and world-renowned cellular health and regenerative medicine specialist, Dr. Elizabeth Yurth, founder of the Boulder Longevity Institute. Now, this course unlocks the latest on the science of anti-aging, longevity medicine, and cellular health, equipping you with the tools and the insights to improve your health span and vitality. Together, Dr. Yurth and I have provided evidence-based strategies to optimize your body and mind, empowering you to live a longer, healthier life. So enroll today at lisatamati.com and start transforming your future, or check out the link below in the description.
But then I could learn a hell of a lot from you from all of this, what was the other question I had? There was a cat study on, I think it was kidney and cat study.
Yes.
So people with kidney disease, how could it be beneficial, and why? What is the story there with the kidneys if you've got kidney dysfunction or kidney disease?
It's great that you bring that up. So my office manager, her husband has a genetic condition called polycystic kidney disease. His father passed from it. His brother, which is a decade younger, has already had kidney transplant. He has now gone to kidney failure. The doctor said avoid the protein because he's at 15% kidney function. Very, very bad. He's had kidney failure. Yeah. But what the animal study showed, it was a cat study, and cats often have kidney disease issues. And we have many cats. My wife loves cats, and I love my wife, so I love cats too. And so it's actually showed that it helped them, not because it didn't hurt the kidney, because Myos has a little bit of protein in it, like 4.4 grams per scoop, but it's not the magic sauce. It's a Fortetropin that's a magic sauce, the patented ingredient. But it's like, wow, you can actually continue to do that. So I sent that article to her today, this morning, just by chance, and you bring it up. And I said, for Brad.
Yeah.
And she's my office manager.
He could take it.
I'm going to have him take it.
Yeah. Because he could get protein synthesis happening. He can maintain his muscle.
Correct.
But he can't take a lot of protein because of the kidney disease.
Precisely. But he needs to go in strong. So they actually, the nephrologist, the specialist, said, continue exercising. Good on them. Yeah, but they're taking away all his protein.
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, how easy you're going to have the protein synthesis?
Yeah.
Well, once again, and luckily I'm in Oregon, she's in Colorado. For those that don't know, the States, we're well over 1,000 miles away. We're both virtual now, thanks to the pandemic thingy.
Yeah.
And so as a result, she has it on our shelf. I said, just give it to him. It's free. I'm donating it to him. Let's take care of your husband.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's gold. That's gold.
We're all a community. We all have to take care of one another. And
absolutely.
You know,
yeah. And that's what this education's all about, and sharing these great things.
Yes,
and
yes.
at the moment, for those in New Zealand listening, we're working on a way to get MyOSMD. We haven't actually got it, but I'm getting this podcast out there because we need to make more people aware of it, and then you might better get it in the States. I believe they're shipping around the world, but we have yet to find an official way to get it in. So we're working on that. I've got people working on that. Friends working on that.
And I'm confident you will. I'm confident you will.
Because this is super important for so many people. Like, we need to get this in the country, right?
Certainly. And those people that are doing either bariatric surgeries or doing the GLP-1, Ozempic or Wegovy or whatever they're called in your country, it's a good thing in terms of it's helping people lose weight, but it's a bad thing because we don't know what the long-term side effects are. We know the short-term side effects are loss of muscle mass.
And if you don't take your protein, yes, correct. Definitely.
Yeah, because it curbs your appetite. The average North American eats crummy, very, very poorly. And now you're eating less of the crumminess. So you're getting even more nutrient deficits because we're an overfed, undernourished society, hence why the obesity, and why, with this most recent election here in the States, Bobby Kennedy is speaking about, okay, well, maybe we need to figure out why we're spending so much money and we're one of the sickest people around the whole world.
I'm very glad he's
a light bulb.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think, I am a fan of GLP-1 agonists, but you need a functional medicine doctor to guide you through the process, because you need to be maintaining muscle mass by going to the gym while you're on that. You need to be taking your protein, and MyOSMD would be a beautiful synergy with that. And then you also need to be detoxing, because you're losing weight, and losing weight is a stressor on the body because you're releasing toxins that are stored in our fat tissue. So you need to, I am a fan of the GLP-1s, but they have to be done in a holistic protocol manner, with good guidance.
About 10 blocks away, as we enter our neighborhood, there's a sandwich board that says, come get your skinny shot. It's in a strip mall. I'm going but you're doing yourself harm, because it needs to be guided by somebody that's skilled, that's going to put together the whole protocol for you. Because if we work too hard to gain our muscle, and then to lose it in pursuit of a number on the scale, it's the quality of the weight which we lose.
Exactly. And the same with bariatric, with the bariatric, they're not counseled to how to, they lose the weight because the stomach's stapled, but they are often got massive deficits in nutrients then, and you need to have a full protocol around it: exercise, nutrition, guidance, all of that sort of stuff, and that's very often not.
We're overfed, undernourished, and I have a saying which nobody likes: don't die dieting. Because
don't die dieting.
Don't die dieting. Because the word diet and die is right in there, because you're starving yourself, you're becoming micro and macronutrient deficient, unless once again you're working with a good functional medicine team. And you need the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 detoxification support. Always, all those xenoestrogens and forever chemicals are being released, or hormones are being released, and it's not good. It's not good. So once again, methodical, slow, and sure wins the race. But you can talk to people about races more than I used to be a sprinter back when in my skinny days. And but you can talk about the longer races where it's
I was never fast. You see, I couldn't sprint to save myself, so I had to go long because I had not a single fast twitched fiber in my body. I was only good at long day.
I was a 100-meter guy, 100-meter, 400-meter.
The opposite. You're a power guy.
But then I did fall over out of breath.
I'm the opposite. I can go for long, but very, very slow. But that's, that's cool. That's all our genetic differences, right? And when we understand those genetic differences and we can tailor our program to that as well, then even better, you know. But I agree, this detoxing, when you're losing weight, you want to be making sure that you've got good binders and good detox mechanisms and antioxidants going in, and, you know, things to support that whole process, and not just drop 50 pounds in a month, because you're going to be sick, you know?
Oh yeah, without a question.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting, you know, we know where the marathon came from because of course, ancient Greece.
You got Greek.
It's like, but apparently wasn't one of my relatives.
Oh no, and you've got to get to a date with your wife, I believe. So we're going to have to wrap this up, Dr. Chris. But are there any sort of parting words on Myos MD, and what else? Was there any studies that we missed that I didn't include in our conversation around this?
It's been used for cats, it's been used for dogs, it's been studied heavily for humans. I think the Berkeley study is the one in my age category that captures it the most for me, because they've shown the resistance training. To recap, 6.6 or 19.8 grams. The ones that took 19.8 grams had even more lean body mass, but both had benefits. So those were resistance trained individuals. Then we had the older individuals, which I would categorize myself chronologically and biologically. We're trying to change the biological side of things.
We all.
And so I'm going to keep on saying, Lisa's mom's doing it. I should too. And I'll keep on hearing the voice. Get on your bicycle.
I'll be sitting on your shoulder. A lot of people say that to me. I always hear your voice. You're sitting on my shoulder, telling me to get my ass out there.
Oh yeah, no. I'm going to officially have Lisa coaching me, okay, and with encouragement and enthusiasm and care. It's very clear you care about people, and so that's wonderful. So, and I think we've covered it. And so whether it be dogs, cats, or humans, this is a food that has been patented, processed, fertilized, which the eggs in the store are not fertilized, and never heated. So it offers that deliverable active ingredient. So that's, I think, what's moving the needle, and the research is showing it. And that 21-day study I mentioned with the older adults, they didn't change their diet, they didn't change their exercise. And in 21 days, these older individuals, double-blind placebo-controlled study, so nobody knew what was happening, they did better, 18% more protein synthesis. And that's why lazy me has it right next to me.
And actually, I've got one more thing for you, because I just interviewed Dr. Dan Goodnow, and he is. Do you know Dan?
I actually wrote an international PubMed article, and so if you type in Chris Meletis and plasmalogens, you'll actually find it on PubMed.
Well, I was interviewing him the other day and doing a deep dive into plasmalogens, because I'm a huge fan of it. I'm actually doing his training and stuff at the moment, and with Prodrome Scan and all of that. But he talks about the importance of the phosphatidylcholine and the methyltransferase system. And the phosphatidylcholine is, you know, I've always been saying, we've got to eat eggs because we need the phosphatidylcholine. And that's a very big piece of the Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, ALS sort of plasmalogen story is the phosphatidylcholine, how important it is. And I was thinking, Myos MD, because we can't get this phosphatidylcholine product into the country at the moment. We're still struggling with that as well. But I was thinking, actually, Myos MD is the perfect thing for people. Wouldn't that help with Alzheimer's and that sort of thing? I know there's probably no research done currently.
Well, the research is muscle brain. We already know gut brain, right?
Yeah.
Muscle brain, there's a lot of research. In fact, if you ever want me to come back about muscle brain, I have the ApoE34 gene polymorphism. So it's like, okay. And so we already know about type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's. And then it's like, hey, no, as the muscle goes, so does the brain. No question about it.
Wow.
And so by taking care of your muscle, you're also protecting yourself from some of those things, and metabolic syndrome and diabetes. Type in type 3 diabetes into pubmed.gov, and what pops up? Type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and that phosphatidylcholine piece might be a key player, or it is a key player in the membrane, the membrane health, and that's what plasmalogens help with. So I've got a husband too with the ApoE4 a single allele, which gives them a 25% higher risk of developing Alzheimer's, and it's the efflux of the cholesterol out of the membrane of the cell where's the problem, which is what the plasmalogen neuro, the omega-3 DHA
Yes.
plasmalogen does.
I have several patients on it, by the way.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm a big fan of those. Unfortunately, bloody expensive. I hope he manages to get prices down because you need higher doses. I have higher doses going into mum now of the neuro. I've been on the glia for a long time, but I'm just thinking that the MYOS, the phosphatidylcholine piece of the MYOS MD, could be an interesting research area for Alzheimer's, for
There's no question. It helps with acetylcholine production, helps with the cell membrane, and every one of our cells has a phosphate bilayer, and you need to have the choline there. You must have the choline there. And this is also like where green lip muscle and essential fatty acids come into play as well, that neuroinflammatory side of things as well. And when we're leaner, generally all things being equal, our neuroinflammation is lower. And also when our neuroinflammation is lower, we're less anxious and we're less Eeyore.
Less negative. and actually, what did you just say there? Something just popped into my brain about, I've lost my train of thought now. Damn. It was something to do with the plasmalogens again and the phosphatidylcholine.
So Dan Goodenow and I have known each other for a long time. I can send you my article because I think you'll find it interesting.
I think his work is just absolutely phenomenal. I really would like to see everybody in the world on plasmalogens. Oh, that was my question, because we've got New Zealand green lip mussels which have plasmalogens in them. But the question is, and I didn't get to ask Dr. Dan Goodenow, I mean, he's developed these precursors to plasmalogens because it can't get through the digestive tract without it. So he's made some special form of these precursors that's sort of like what's in breast milk. My question is, one of my research projects that I want to do is green-lipped mussels have plasmalogens in them, but are they going to be deliverable to the brain, to the body? Are they going to get through the digestive tract, or would they be just broken down in the digestive tract?
I think right now is a good self-hack. I think it's something with all the other benefits of green lip mussel.
Yep.
Certainly it's going to be fueling and feeding the pathways. And much like glutathione, does it absorb? Does it get broken down or not? Or does it get reassembled? And NMN, I lecture a lot on the mitochondria as one of my big areas of expertise.
NAD, I would love to talk to you about that too, because I've done lots of lectures on NAD.
And so, but the question is NMN, which in the United States, the FDA is banned because they consider it a drug.
It's still legal here.
But it has to disassemble across the membrane and get reassembled. So this is why I use like nicotinamide riboside preferentially, because it goes through a what's called a NRK1 and 2 pathway. So whenever we're physically or psychologically stressed, we induce that pathway to make more NAD, and NAD is necessary for 500 enzymatic pathways in the body.
Well,
I want all of them to work. I want all of them to work.
Yeah.
I don't want 498 of them to work. I want all 500 pathways to have enough NAD.
Yeah, actually, I'll put one on your radar in case you haven't heard of it, and it's called 1-MNA, which I've done a deep dive into, which doesn't, because one with the NMN, and I've interviewed Professor Joseph Bauer and lots of luminaries in the space of NAD, but Dr. Elizabeth Youth came across something called 1-MNA, and this one doesn't upregulate the NMNT enzyme, which is the problematic one, right? And so 1-MNA is I think a better, safer way to support your NAD pathways without regulating that NMNT. I can send you a couple of lectures that I've done myself, and one I did with Courtney, one of the girls at Bold Longevity, to try to explain this. It's quite complex NAD science, as you'll know.
You're doing great.
But in the NAD story, you don't want to overwhelm that pathway with too much NR or NMN or NAD infusions because of this NMNT possibly deleterious effects of that, and the possible, there's a lot of cancer researchers trying to lower NMNT. There's a lot of risk around stroke and methyl donor depletion and so on. So my current theory on the NAD, and this is obviously in flux and learning, but I take TMG, quercetin, apigenin, and 1-NMA, and I take a little bit of niacin as well. for a number of other reasons, but also to support that pathway as a holistic approach to the NAD pathway. And I take low levels of NMN, smaller doses than I was taking before. And I don't put NMN into, say, someone like my mum, who has a huge senolytic load, being 83, because I don't want to upregulate that NMNT. And she's got a history of cancer. So
and it's all about balance. And that comes back to your first question. Why does the body make myostatin? It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Everything's about balance.
We don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know.
Yeah. And we don't want to go bull in a china shop, because our cells are all at the nano and picogram levels. So sometimes we overdo things to supersize me via the fast food chains. And so we kind of nudge it. And you mentioned the senolytics. I think the senolytics are a must. The
I'd love to hear about those.
All of those things. And
maybe we can do a session on your work on the senolytics, because because that's a fascinating area, getting rid of senescence.
Well, it's been a privilege to visit with your listeners.
Thank you.
You're honestly, and I mean this sincerely from the bottom, you're brilliant. And and I just love it, and your enthusiasm, and keep on doing what you're doing, and let's all, including the listeners, push the limits. Let's be the change we want to see.
Wonderful. Dr. Chris, you're absolutely wonderful. Where can people find you and your books, most importantly?
On Amazon. And then, of course, drmeletis.com, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really not about me at all. It's all about helping humanity, because when we make ourselves healthier, and then we're going to be happier, and then we're going to be more peaceful. So,
amen. It's just wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, hit the notification bell and subscribe, and of course share it with just one person who you think could really benefit from this content. Click here to watch last week's episode, and click here for my website, and click here to watch a video you may not have seen yet.